So, Joshin Master here, coming in with another round, a dose of reality. Um, Getting into the concept of the last video of talking about what it means to build a relationship with marriage. So, we really need to address this right now because it is important. Our society is completely lambasted with falsehoods, lying, deception, inappropriate statistical information, and complete and total disaster and deceit. So the reason why that a marriage is no longer the primary core component of today's society is that it has a massive stigma connected to it. People think that it has no benefits to it, that it is all just chaos and destruction, and that it has nothing to pertain to help building up both sides of the individual, which isn't true at all. So what we need to address here is that marriage is a mutual beneficial component of where two people come in to a committed relationship that is meant to be for a lifelong time. And we don't seem to understand anymore that if someone gets you upset just by leaving dirty laundry on the ground, that's not a sufficient reason to divorce somebody. Because what's going to happen is that that person who has had your back, has been working with you through hard times and good times, is there to help you through those struggles. And that's what a relationship is about, is not when things are going good only, but when things go bad too, and how you handle that. And how you're able to handle that says a lot about your character development, your maturation, your capacity for understanding and navigation and commitment. And commitment is a very frightening word for a lot of people now because we really don't seem to understand that it takes hard work, dedication, preservation, and resilience to have a marriage or long term relationship. And simple things just seem to be um, able to set or trigger anybody off, especially in our woke world today, that you have to have a continuous and competent component of, oh, well, I'm just going to jump ship just because things are getting hard. That happens quite a bit. A lot of friends who are happily married, and some who have had to go through divorces and situations. And they always ask me, and they say, Steve, well, you're not a married guy, but you seem to understand how the complexities of a relationship works. And I do. I've most of my life I have been in committed relationships, nothing less than 2 to 3 years. Um, some of it was my fault too. I'm not going to sit there and say that I was perfect in those relationships because I wasn't. But it is a two-way street, and you need to find somebody who is going to help you grow and develop and be there to help support you in your goals and dreams, and not just kick you to the curb. Maybe times the husband has gotten fired from a job, not because of a fault of his own, or maybe because of a fault of his own. And then the wife just gets up and leaves him. That happens quite often. 9 times out of 10, most struggles come because of financial distress. And a lot of couples are not making sufficient money in order to be able to get through hard times. And that's where financial fitness and being able to understand how to budget and how to be able to reconcile on differences is a very important part. You can still maintain a relationship even through times like that, but a lot of it has to be based on the person's ability to work with you through those things. And a lot of people do not know how to do that because they were never taught. They have never seen a successful marriage. So, because of that, they don't understand what a successful marriage is and how it's supposed to be to conduct. So, getting into that, if you want to have a successful marriage, communication is key. Knowing the person's cues of when to approach them and when not to approach them. Excuse me. A lot of times, when a woman gets angry, this is what she does. She'll get right up in front of her husband's face, start yelling and screaming at him, and a man's natural reaction is gonna be to push her back. Not necessarily to cock her and hit her, but he will push her back. He will put hands on you if you do that. If you keep coming at him and keep yelling and screaming at him in his face, he's going to do that. That is not domestic dispute. That is not a domestic form of violence. That is, you're coming up to me. It is a natural animalistic reaction to push back. And a real man, will not tolerate that bullshit. He will not sit there and cower before a woman. He will sit her down, gently put his hands on her shoulder, and sit down right next to her and say, okay, we need to handle this situation. I'm not going to let you come at me and attack me like you're some kind of wild, crazed animal just because you're having an emotionally distraught day. We need to nip this in the bud and find out what's going on. But a lot of problems with a lot of these guys nowadays is that they come from a weak family background. Usually a one-parent household raised by a single parent. Now, I'm not knocking single moms, because sometimes, very rarely it happens, but there are a lot of men who were raised with both parents in the spectrum in regards to a relationship where they had the father and the mother, even if they got divorced, were still in their lives. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to direct how the man conducts himself in his entire life. And he's going to know, okay, he's going to be like, he's going to sit his wife down or his girlfriend down and be like, hey, look, you need to chill out and we need to discuss what's bothering you. Because that's the dance between the feminine and masculine energies. See, a lot of guys don't realize women do things to try to get you to get their attention. And they'll do little things like break a CD, start smashing your shit, because you're not giving them the attention that they want and that they need. But you have to make sure that you know how to do that. And a lot of men don't. And women can tell when you're actively listening and when you're not. And it's the same thing with men. We can definitely tell when you're really into what we're saying. It is a mutual component of just humankind in general. We have certain biological developments that allow us to be able to take a look into what another being is component and saying to us, and how to be able to express that in a correct way. I am not advocating that you do this with a person who is violent, volatile, belligerent, psychologically or emotionally unstable. Those are not healthy relationships, and those people need to have help. And if you're not a psychologist or a marriage counselor or a social worker, a person who is able to handle situations like that, you need to seek, or they need to seek professional help. Also with an ordained minister or someone who knows relationships well enough to give spiritual guidance through those certain situations and how to get through them. Those are very important resources to be able to utilize if you have them available, and if you don't, there is a way to attain them. It just takes information, because knowledge is power. The right knowledge as well. So if you're looking to get married, you're looking to have a long-term relationship, and you want to make it last, you got to know the most important steps. Number 1, dedication. Not giving up when things get hard. Not running away from that, because that shows your grit and determination to stick through the hard times. But doesn't mean to deal with a person who's psychopathic, or a person who may have sociological tendencies, sociopathic tendencies in those degrees. And that's why picking your mate is so important. Socioeconomic status does play a role for women. They look for a man who is stable, who is able to provide, who is able to do things like that. That is important. And in turn, the woman should also be able to bring something to the table, with not just her tits and ass and her butt, and her thighs and hips and waist and all that shit. As men, we are physically and biologically designed to look for the healthiest female to mate with. That's part of our nature. I don't care what you learn about your gender studies. Gender studies don't use appropriate scientific information that verify the validity of how our species was propagated. Those people don't know their ass ends from their elbows. Am I a professional anthropologist, or am I a professional individual who knows about science and those degrees? No, I use common sense and logic and reasoning. which can probably overpower more than half of the idiots that we have today. So what happens is that when a man sees a woman, it's just natural. He gets sexually aroused. Just the same thing when a woman sees a physically attractive man, she gets sexually aroused. That's how we have sex. That's how people are here. That's how things are developed. But having a relationship just beyond the sexual content is what makes us unique as a species, is that we are capable of having lifelong commitments and partners, but we ourselves have to be spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically pliable, malleable, and available to be able to do so. And we are in a damaged society of many males who only come up in single parent homes, predominantly single mothers, and mothers do not know how to raise their sons. They don't understand the workings of the male psychology, that boys are apt to fight and to get into roughhousing. But that's how they create their character. That's how they're able to face the real world, which is why sports is great for men to get into, because it helps channel those aggressive tendencies in positive ways. See, for a guy, I've been a martial artist for almost going on 33 years now. I've done a lot of different things, anywhere from doing sambo, combat submission wrestling, karate, kung fu, tai chi, and a lot of different components. But those have been vehicles for me to be able to utilize so that way I can channel my energies in the right direction and curve them so I can be successful in my endeavors. But a man must have a conduit of where he is putting his time and effort into, and not in negative and destructive ways. I've been overseas, especially in Eastern Europe and the Ukraine, and a lot of women over there are looking to get out of their economical and socioeconomical status because their country is going down the tubes. They've been in they've been in a recession for almost nearly 70 years. $1 equates to 25 of theirs. Excuse me. So what we need to do in those regards, sorry about that, shifting around too much, is we need to work on ourselves. Personal growth, self-development, self-encouragement, but also understanding how to accept failure is a very important part too. So I hope you learned something today. Please feel free to leave comments below. You may or may not like my commentary back in return. Just the reality of utilizing freedom of speech and our civil liberties. And I look forward to hearing from you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, don't be stupid. Question all things and use wisdom. Joshi Master out. Rock on.